Jonathan woke up with a terrible headache. His marriage was over. The wife left, sleeping in the arms of another man, as she had been doing for more than a year. He made it to the bathroom and climbed under the shower, letting the cold water wake him until it was warm enough for comfort. He washed up, dried himself, and stood in front of the mirror, assessing his reflection. She was at least partially right. Hair cut by a cheap hairdresser ordered on the top of the head, and the crown was already bald. His belly was larger than he would like. His waist size was now 42, instead of the 34 with which he graduated from school. He looked old and tired, like those middle-aged men he had laughed at when he was young, sure that he would never allow such a thing to happen. He raised his arms. They were still strong, not like an overweight middle-aged man would have. The physical work took care of that. Something needs to be done about my stomach. He turned his head, examining his hair from different angles. Rummaging under the sink, he found the old clippers he used when he grew his beard for a few months. She never liked it, and he gave in by shaving. 5 minutes later, Jonathan was holding a razor in his hands and looking at his reflection with a smile. Half a can of shaving foam turned his head into a white chia pet. He was new to this, and it took several tries before he got it right. Better. Not perfect, but better. Leaning closer to the mirror, he plucked a couple of stray hairs on his eyebrows, which seemed to have a life of their own. Small cuticle scissors got rid of the hair in his nostrils, which, unfortunately, grew faster than on the top of his head. He deliberately avoided thinking about what to do about his situation. Will he take her back? Can he stand living with a woman who threw away their marriage so easily? The wife who cuckolded him for a year, confessed without guilt or remorse, and then left to do it again. Forget her words, actions speak louder, and her actions screamed. It was impossible to accept this. No way. Maybe one occasional mistake could be forgiven, but a long-term affair with the man she said she loved. What she told him, demanding that he accept it, or she would ruin his life. She wasn't perfect either. Gained at least 20 extra pounds after the birth of their youngest child. She was 34 years old, and her breasts were already beginning to sag. Her hair was no longer the full, shiny, gorgeous head of hair it once was. She now wore her hair short, claiming it was easier to maintain. Although his opinion on this matter did not bother her. Her opinion had not interested him for 2 years. Jonathan rubbed his chin and decided not to shave. He always liked the beard. There was no reason why he couldn't wear it now. He looked through his wardrobe, mostly old clothes, as he didn't like spending money on himself when it could be spent on his family. He found the least attractive items of clothing and dressed for the first day of his new life. He wasn't a wealthy lawyer or a CEO or some dodgy accountant or ex-Marine. He was a simple man, a diesel mechanic, but a man of action. So he went to the bank. It didn't take long to withdraw all their savings, of which there wasn't much. The recycling helped, and they managed to save almost $7,000. Before the overtime began, they lived almost from paycheck to paycheck. Annual bonuses and tax refunds were the only sources of replenishment of their savings. He crossed the street and opened a new bank account, depositing $1,000 into it. The bank was pleased to have him as a customer, and he received a new toaster as a gift. The next case turned out to be more difficult. Jonathan walked into the Caterpillar dealership and hand-wrote his resignation letter. His boss tried to dissuade him, but Jonathan was adamant. He explained the situation. His wife had been cheating on him for over a year. He was not going to pay for her life with a new lover. He was fired on the condition that if the situation changed, there would always be a job for him. By the time he left, he had received his last check, including compensation for his vacation. He changed his health insurance, removed his wife from it, and canceled his company life insurance. He could now take out independent insurance to protect his children. But for a woman of easy viability, nothing. Having dealt with the basic issues, he returned home and started calling. He canceled their only credit card. It wasn't difficult since it had a low limit, and they couldn't afford to rack up debt, so the card was paid off in full every month. The next call removed his wife from his cell plan. Now let her pay for her phone. Perhaps her lover will take care of it. He realized that he had missed breakfast and lunch and was starting to feel hungry. It was a busy morning. Opening the refrigerator, Jonathan reflected that while Susan might have been unhappy with his beer belly, she certainly hadn't contributed to his weight loss. There was nothing healthy in the refrigerator. Soda, snacks, cold cuts, bacon, ready meals, beer of course. It's no surprise that they both gained extra weight. Jonathan quickly fried the eggs and made a sandwich out of them. Not the healthiest lunch, but the best you could make at home. Having completed his first steps, he was confused, not knowing what to do next. Until this moment, he acted on instinct. Last night, his first reaction was to get angry and drunk and wallow a little in self-pity. In the morning, his instinct was to protect himself and stop supporting her. Now he didn't know what to do. It was all too much, and his thoughts were spinning. His wife is a cheater. His marriage is over. He realized that he could not cope with this alone, and, thinking about his family, he went to his grandfather. If he had to choose between talking to his grandfather Max or his mother, he would choose the old man. His mother was a woman, and at the moment he was afraid that she might side with his wife for the sake of the children and the preservation of the family. Grandfather was a straightforward man and would at least give honest advice. The 70-year-old man was surprised to see his grandson on the doorstep. "John, what is this new image?" Only Grandpa Max called him John. Jonathan awkwardly rubbed the smooth top of his head. "Grandfather, I need advice." Grandfather Max was of the old school, the son of German immigrants. His father once created a ranch in the wasteland, and his grandfather expanded it. A man of no words, with few friends, but the ones he had were loyal and shared his values. Strict with his children, he demanded that rules be followed or there would be consequences. It could be called old-fashioned. Honesty and principles became the foundation of the ranch's growth and success. In an era of slick lawyers and 50-page contracts, Max Schroeder's handshake was an obligation. Jonathan spent half an hour telling the whole story. The old man did not tolerate lies, deceit, especially when it came to his family. "How are you going to get rid of her?" was his only question. "It's not that simple. We have 3 children. She is a woman of easy virtue. You take the kids and throw her out." Jonathan couldn't help but smile. If only it were that simple. "It doesn't happen like that now, grandfather. The mother almost always gets the children, especially if she is the primary caregiving parent. She will get half of everything, and most likely more. I'll have to pay child support for 3 children and support her because she can't work." "She can't work, that means she doesn't want to, you lazy cheater." Jonathan was surprised by his grandfather's rudeness. He rarely heard the old man swear, especially so harshly, and never before had such words been spoken in his presence. Jonathan was probably already an adult for his grandfather. "This is the law, grandfather. I don't like it, but I'm afraid she's right about most of it. She thinks she can hold me hostage and force me to accept the situation. I don't believe in this bunch of crap that you're telling me now." Grandpa stood up and reached for the old phone. The rotary disc apparatus was as durable as a tank. Jonathan knew the phone was older than he was. "Bill, this is Max. I need your advice. How soon can you get off your ass and be here?" After a short answer on the other end, Grandfather hung up. "Well, what's your plan?" "I want to get rid of the house. I can't support him. I hoped that the children and I could stay here. I'm not going to pay for her happy life with her lover. Let her decide where to live." Grandfather nodded. "No problem. Here we have 4 empty rooms, filled with junk from the last 50 years. It will be nice to have young blood in the house. Who will look after the children while you are at work?" "I'm not going to work. Let her earn alimony and maintenance from the unemployed." "How are you going to survive?" "I was hoping that Uncle Len would let me work on the ranch, illegally. I am already familiar with this business. I always spent the summer months here working. He will be able to pay you, and you will already provide the children with everything they need. Maybe I will receive some symbolic salary to cover my expenses. I don't need much. Car insurance, food, clothes." Grandfather looked at him sternly. "No symbolic salary. The man who lives under my roof works and earns honest money. We'll find a way around it so she doesn't get a penny of her money. We'll have to think about who will look after the children. Jonathan heard the sound of a truck approaching. The sound of a diesel engine was easily audible from inside the house. He stood up to open the door, but Bill Wesley, one of his grandfather's old friends, walked in without knocking. "What the hell is wrong with you, Max?" the newcomer muttered. It took another 20 minutes to explain the situation, after which Bill came to his conclusion. "She's mostly right. She'll probably end up with the kids, and you'll have to pay child support, a mortgage, and support her cheating ass too. Did you say her lover is a lawyer? Is that what he told her?" Jonathan nodded. "So he screwed up big time." "You can't do that. This could result in his license being revoked." "What do you know about him?" "Nothing. He is younger and a divorce lawyer." "Nothing more." "Well, that his wife died in a car accident a couple of years ago. He was driving." "Damn, there aren't many like that. I'll make a couple of calls and see what I can find out." Bill thought for a minute. "What did you do with the money?" "Withdrew all the money from the accounts. Quit my job." "Fine. Many of these modern lawyers say you should only take half." "Nonsense. She'll still get half, but don't give it away so easily. Make her fight for it. Take control in your hands." "Why did you quit?" "I worked too much overtime. I don't want the court to award alimony and maintenance based on a 60-hour work week. I can't pay much if I'm unemployed." "Is there a chance that your boss might fire you instead of you quitting?" "The judiciary will be much more lenient in such a scenario. If you leave on your own, they are based on your previous earnings. If you get fired, there will be more wiggle room." Jonathan smiled at the old man's analysis. Judge Bill Wesley has been a district court judge for longer than he can remember, retiring only a few years ago. He knew how things worked better than anyone. "How does her family feel about all this? Do they support this?" "It doesn't look like them. They don't know anything yet. Nobody knows. She wants us to keep it a secret. That's how it is. Damn cheater thinks she can hide her infidelities." Bill pulled out an old phone and, finding a number, dialed it. "Jimmy, this is Bill. I have bad news for you. I'm sorry to be the one to say this." "No, don't worry. Nothing like that. Your granddaughter Susan, married to this Schroeder. She's cheating on him." "No, I'm not joking." "No, she wasn't caught. She confessed to him 2 days ago and said that she's been doing this for a year. She's not leaving, at least, according to her. She wants him to come to terms with this and let her continue." "No, of course he does not agree. Do you think he's some kind of weakling?" "Yes, I know. This is hard to hear. Always been a selfish little bitch. Not sure how this will end, but it doesn't look good. Thought you should know. Sorry that I have to be a messenger. Of course, I will tell him." Bill turned to Jonathan, his eyes blazing with anger. "She broke the old man, you traitor. Nobody wants to believe that their children can enroll." "Thank you," she said, Jonathan. "Damn, this is hard to believe." Grandfather spoke again. "You said she might come back today. You need to control the situation. Let her know that you are not going to put up with what she does. No self-respecting man would tolerate this." "I think I've already done it, Grandfather." "What do you plan to do with this house that you bought?" "I think I'll just leave it in the jar." "I don't want to deal with this." The judge intervened. "If her name is on the deeds to the house, she might get in your way. I don't know what else can be done." "Stay in the house for now," Bill advised. "Control your finances and stop making payments. And it's not me telling you, but you can hide the money. Go to Oklahoma and lose most of your money in Indian casinos. Spend a couple of months there. If you can stand it, prepare everything. And when the situation becomes hopeless, then talk to her. If you get divorced now, it will be very difficult for you. Hold her on the hook for a little while. Don't let her fall off." Grandfather looked at Jonathan, looking him over from head to toe. "I hate to say it, but you've let yourself go, boy. You'll soon be back on the market. You should use this time to prepare yourself. Does this fool think you won't find another woman? Is her box trimmed with gold? Damn it, there is nothing simpler in this world. We'll get you back on your feet in no time." Jonathan reacted sensitively to his grandfather's remark. I'm not the only one who let myself go. She is also far from perfect. The old man laughed. Yes, but it doesn't matter. Any woman who agrees to have sex will always find a man who wants to sleep with her. There's no denying that she's still quite attractive. That's the problem. I hope you're not looking for that kind of relationship. Your children need a real woman, not some woman of easy virtue. I'm not ready for dates, Grandpa. Besides, I'm still married. You're not really married. She left you, remember that. You had no choice in this. She now has a new love. Everything that happened between you is over. You don't owe her anything anymore. We can talk here all day, but it won't get us anywhere. Go home. I'll talk to Len about work. Come by tomorrow, and we will continue the discussion. Let's see what Bill finds out. Jonathan returned home feeling a little better. His feelings and reactions to his wife's unexpected confession were confirmed by older family members. There wasn't much to do at home, and he already missed his children. He wondered if he had done everything too quickly, quit his job, closed his accounts. It's too late to regret spilled milk. At least he felt like he was in control of the situation again. Now he did not respond to her demands, which she considered her rights. Looking into the refrigerator again, he tried to decide what to cook. He glanced at the large pile of delivery menus sitting on the table next to the refrigerator and looked at them with disgust. No wonder they had no money and were in such bad shape. He threw the processed food and menu in the trash. When Susan didn't call or show up by 7 p.m., he drove to the supermarket and bought healthier food. When he returned home, Susan was already waiting for him. She looked at him and stepped back in shock. Jonathan? The new image surprised her. Susan, he said calmly, carrying half a dozen bags of groceries into the kitchen. She followed him. I wanted to apologize for how things turned out last night. This didn't turn out the way I wanted. I didn't mean to hurt you. Have you calmed down? Sobered up? Can we talk like adults? He shrugged. It wouldn't matter how you said it. Finding out that you ruined our marriage for some young stud would have hurt anyway. Did you have a good night again? She judged herself again for mentioning sex. She knew it would hurt him. For men, everything has always come down to sex. Why couldn't he understand that this was the least of their problems? Please, Jonathan, I shouldn't have talked about sex. This was unacceptable. Making love to you is wonderful. It wasn't a problem. He laughed. It definitely won't be great anymore. What do you want, Susan? His words startled her. He never spoke to her like that. For 11 years of marriage, she felt anger boiling inside her, but tried to remain calm. She didn't need a repeat of last night. I want you to understand what I'm going through. It's not easy for me. I didn't want to fall in love with him. I just wanted to help him get through a difficult time. This shouldn't affect us in any way. I love you and will never leave you. Understood. Now you are in love with him. Thanks for this. Anything else you want to say? Maybe you want to tear my chest, tear out my heart, and dance on it. Tell me how worthless I am, how I can't satisfy your needs, how I deserve to be treated like trash. Surely you have prepared many small, sarcastic phrases to hurt me as much as possible. Did you plan the whole conversation like the one you had yesterday? No, Jonathan, I don't want to hurt you. I love you. You are my husband, the father of my children, my soulmate. I will always love you. I just need to be near him. Can't you understand? This is important to me. For us. Then go to him. I don't have the slightest desire to be under the same roof with a cheating wife who doesn't need me. Leave. Please. Your presence here makes me sick. She began to cry. I know you're not serious. You just want to hurt me. I know that you love me, and over time you will understand that this is the best for all of us, for the children. I'm going to bring them home tomorrow. They don't need to know about our problems. Nobody should. This is between us. I hope that if we have any questions, we can discuss them in private. And what should I tell them when you spend your nights with your lover again? I don't do that. Never did until last night. I didn't even intend to. You scared me with your drunken, aggressive behavior. I thought you might hit me. I couldn't stay here. I've never done this before. Everything can remain as it has been all last year. I don't think it will work out that way. I guess if you pick up the kids tomorrow, that means you'll spend the night again today with your lover. Please don't call him that. He's a good person, kind person. Yes, such a good man that he cannot find his woman and is forced to steal another man's wife. So kind, so noble. Go to him already before I puke. She stood there for a moment and then slowly turned around and walked away. I'll give you time, she said. I understand that this was a shock for you. I wish there was another way to say it. I love you and never wanted to hurt you. You could say that it's a lie, that my loving wife is not really a cheating woman of easy virtue. Damn it, Jonathan. I'm not a woman of easy virtue. I can't believe you can say that. I don't run after everyone. This is not some low fling. I love this man. Your insults and humiliations are of no help. Are you trying to make me divorce you and ruin your life? Did you love him the first time you had sex with him? When did you break your vows, betray your family, and become a traitor? Did you love him then? She stopped, her mouth open, unable to find words. His question made sense. She remembered feeling guilty the first time she came home and cried in the shower until the water turned cold. She told Rich it shouldn't happen again. She cared for him then, but did she love him? No, she didn't love him then. She just loved the way he made her feel needed. She turned and walked away, furious that he had made her feel guilty again for doing what she thought was right. Rich needed her. After she left, Jonathan had a hard time not returning to the bottle of whiskey that was in the closet. Instead, he made himself a salad, ate a skinless chicken breast, and went for a long walk. It didn't make him feel better, but at least it didn't make him feel worse. Jonathan got up with his alarm and was at his grandfather's by 8 in the morning. For him, it was a working day. He was surprised to see his grandfather's entire brigade. They were a friendly group. Above the fireplace, above the hearth, hung a photograph of 5 men in Green Scout uniforms, all eaglets. They were best friends all their lives. It was hard to imagine these days having 4 best friends you could always count on for over 60 years. They always faced problems head-on as a team. Jonathan considered himself lucky to have such people on his side. He was led into the dining room, where a rich country breakfast was laid out on the table. 7 devices. Jonathan looked around again and saw that his Uncle Len was also at the table. He sat down at the table and Bill's wife came out offering coffee to those who wanted it. Daryl's wife appeared behind her, proudly carrying a stack of pancakes about 8 inches high, each the size of a plate. Jonathan laughed. "Goodbye, my diet," he said. Uncle Len stuck his fork into a couple of pancakes and placed them on Jonathan's plate. "Enjoy. Believe me, working on a ranch, you will burn any calories you can eat. Let's start from the very bottom." Along with Bill and grandfather, 2 other men were retired. Daryl Smith was a career Army officer, serving 30 years as a colonel. After his retirement, he worked for another 12 years in the civilian field, teaching. He still occasionally substituted for other teachers, but no more than a few weeks a year. James Krum, another of the German immigrants, owned a ranch adjacent to his grandfather's to the south. His 2 sons now ran the ranch, but he continued to keep an eye on the business and regularly attended all the livestock auctions. A Vietnam War veteran, he joined the Army with Daryl, but left the service after 2 tours when his older brother died and he was forced to take over the ranch. Carl Jenkins was from a family that owned the first store in town and a hardware store. Their family was one of the wealthy, not dependent on the weather, the cost of feed, or the fluctuations of the beef market. Everyone seemed to know about his situation. As soon as the breakfast conversation died down, Bill began the conversation. "First of all, we are on your side 100%. I hope you don't mind, but our wives are also aware of what's going on. We thought they might be able to help from a woman's point of view. You understand, once we got involved, it was impossible to keep them away." "I don't mind, sir. Understand." "Fine. How much does your mother know?" he asked. "Nothing yet. I didn't tell anyone except you and grandfather." "You need to tell her. She will be furious to learn that her father and brother know about this before her. Today, okay? Jonathan nodded. This was a conversation he wasn't looking forward to. Great. Now about him. His name is Rich Patton. The couple worked as a lawyer at Bell and Richards. It appears he returned to law school after his wife died. The insurance payment made it possible to do this. Not sure if he's passed the bar exam yet. It seems so. They say he's a pretty smart guy, and they take him well. But that doesn't make him any less of a scoundrel. Bill gathered the group's attention as they ate. Jonathan noticed that 4 women stood to the side, listening to the conversation. Jonathan chewed on a piece of thick apple bacon. The only real question now is whether there is even the slightest chance of reconciliation. She is the mother of your children, 3 children who are under 10 years old, right? 5, 8, and 10, Jonathan corrected. Grandfather intervened. Do you want her back, Guy? This is the main question. Could you forgive a year of cheating and get her back? Maximilian, one of the women said sharply. Jonathan recognized her as Bill's wife. You have no right to call her a woman of easy virtue. We haven't heard her version. Don't make it more complicated than it is. The judge turned to his wife. Judith, you promised that you wouldn't interfere until you were asked to give your opinion. I'm not going to let you corner him. She stumbled. We all know this. It's up to him to decide whether he wants to try to fix everything for the sake of his family. There is no need to make her look worse than she is. She cheated on him for a year with another man behind his back, and now she wants him to accept it. What else do you call a wife who has been betraying her husband for a year and is not going to stop? Confused. Lost, perhaps? I don't know, Judith answered. They need to figure it out themselves. Let him decide for himself what to do. Jonathan finally spoke. Yesterday she came again. Didn't stay. She returned to her lover. No apology other than that she didn't mean to hurt me. She has no plans to end their relationship. Continues to threaten divorce and deprivation of children. I can't accept this. Colonel Darrell spoke for the first time. What if she stopped? Is there a chance to get everything back? Is it too late? Jonathan thought for a few seconds. I don't know. If she had stopped, realized how devastating it was, if I could see that she was repentant and could trust that it wouldn't happen again, maybe. That's a lot of ifs for one maybe. What are the chances that this will even happen? Honestly, almost none, Jonathan admitted. She says she loves him. She is in love with him. He says he is a wonderful lover. I can't come to terms with this. She had no right to tell me about her love life with him. She tried to hurt me. She threatened with divorce, threatened to ruin my life and take away my children. She wants the right to cheat, and when I hinted at the possibility of finding someone else, she said that if I did that, she would file for divorce. How can this be fair? No, I want her out of my life. The colonel's wife, Diana, intervened. But Jonathan, you can't completely remove her from your life. She is the mother of your children. Even though you get divorced, she will remain a part of your life for at least another 13 years, unless you plan to abandon your children. I will never abandon my children, Jonathan answered sharply. I understand, Diana continued calmly, but they are her children too. You can divorce her, but if you do it with pain and anger, you will have to live with the consequences for many years. Hurt? How, for example, can you tell me that she cheated on me for a whole year with another man and he is better than me in bed? That she wants to continue this relationship, and if I try to resist, she will ruin my life and take my children away from me. Jonathan could barely contain his rage. Grandfather stood up and spoke harshly. Lady, we invited you here so that you can share your opinion and experience, but you agreed not to interfere unless asked. You are not helping now. Please leave us alone for a while, and we will ask you to join us when Jonathan decides how to move forward. The women muttered something under their breath with displeasure, but left the room, leaving the men alone. What do you want, Jonathan? Say it simply and clearly, Bill asked. I want her to leave. I want children. I don't want to support her. I don't want to pay for her fun life with her lover. To be honest, I want them both to suffer. Both. I'd like to separate them, maybe even make them hate each other. The men looked at each other, and smiles gradually appeared on their faces. The colonel nodded. Great, so we're all on the same page. This is war. The front line has been drawn. Now it's a matter of tactics. After 3 hours of continuous discussion and debate, a basic plan of action was developed. The women joined them for lunch, and although they were not happy with the decision, they supported it. Jonathan called home and left a message on the answering machine. I won't be back today. Tomorrow too. See you on Sunday. Leaving the old men the Eagles, as they were called to deal with the first steps of the plan, Jonathan went to his mother. He wanted to get to her before she returned from work. When she saw him, she was surprised by his new appearance. What are you doing here? You could have just called. I need to talk to you, Mom. This is important. Within minutes, she was crying after hearing his story. Are you sure you can't forgive her? She's the mother of your children, Jonathan. She lived with you for 11 good years. More like 9. She started seeing him 2 years ago. Is divorce the only way out? Nobody wins in divorce. I don't see any other way, Mom. Honestly, she's not going to break up with him. She says that she loves him and that they have been together for a year. I can't accept this. The mother nodded. It breaks my heart, baby, I confess. Me too, believe me. How can I help? Do you need me to babysit in the evenings or on weekends? For now, I'm staying in the house. I'm not starting a divorce. Perhaps she will soon want him herself. But I'm not going to help her with this. I'm not going to pay for her to meet her lover. I will cover the house, food, and children, but she won't get a penny unless the court orders it. His mother nodded again. She may have to find a job. She'll need it when you're done. I want you to come with me to her parents. I don't want them babysitting while she cheats on me. I'm sure they won't do this, the mother answered with alarm. But they are already doing it. The only question is whether they knew why she sent the children to them. 20 minutes later, they knocked on the door of the Finnegan house. Jonathan, how you have changed, Susan's mother said as she opened the door. You already missed them. Susan picked up the kids about an hour ago. Actually, I came to talk to you and Father. Can I come in? Certainly. Carolyn, how nice to see you. Should I pour you something? She called into the house. Terry, Jonathan and his mom are here. Can I have something non-alcoholic? His mother asked. Is ginger ale okay? Jonathan's mother nodded, and he also added, Same to me, thank you. They settled into the living room as Brenda bought them drinks, followed by Terry. Brenda sat down opposite. Did something happen? You don't look. She hesitated, searching for words. Jonathan nodded. I wanted to ask you to stop covering for Susan while she's cheating on me. Brenda flinched as if she had been slapped in the face, and Terry turned red with anger. How dare you say such a thing? He blurted out sharply. She's been dating her lover for a year now, and you're looking after our children while she's with him. Please stop doing this. I think it is unworthy of you to support her infidelity. Brenda was the first to come to her senses. This is absurd. She loves you and the children. She can't cheat on you. We would never have covered for her if we had known. She spent the last couple of nights at her lover's house while you looked after the children. She admitted to me 2 days ago that she loves him and has been dating him for a year. She comes home at night, but that means she's with him during the day. I doubt he's taking his children with him. Haven't you been watching our children several times a week for the last year? Brenda sat with her mouth open. She said that she helps in a shelter for women who have suffered from violence. Unless this guy hits her, the only thing that's hurt is our marriage, Jonathan replied. Terry looked depressed. Did she tell you? What's her affair? She's having an affair, Jonathan emphasized. She's not going to leave him. She says that she loves him, but at the same time she wants me to support her and the children. But I'm not going to pay for her infidelity. Brenda was on the verge of tears. I can't believe it, but I can believe that she used us as a cover. Please stop. You are helping her ruin our marriage. We don't stand a chance while she's with him. Do you understand this? Terry couldn't resist and blurted out, "Are you yourself without sin? Maybe you cheated on her too?" "No. You have no reason to hint at this. My only fault is that I worked too hard to pay for that house she wanted and her new lingerie for her lover. Maybe I neglected myself a little, gained weight, worked too many hours, came home too tired to give her enough attention. But do you think that justifies a year of cheating? Do you think this is correct?" Susan's father clenched his fists and glared at Jonathan. "I don't know what is right or wrong. I won't judge until I hear her side." "Of course I understand," Jonathan replied with a sarcasy mom. "For Daddy, his girl will always be perfect. She couldn't become a cheater. Stop babysitting while she cheats. I think you better leave," Terry snapped, his face red with rage. "Great," Jonathan stood up sharply. "What is it like to raise a daughter who cheats on her husband and deceives her family? Who uses her parents to cover her trips to the left? Are you proud of who you raised?" "Out!" Terry roared, his Irish temperament flaring up. Carolyn, Jonathan's mother, couldn't believe how quickly things got out of control. She looked at Brenda with regret. However, her son did not stop. He was already heading towards the door, throwing one last remark over his shoulder. "Congratulations, Dad. Great job raising a woman of easy virtue." His mother immediately flared up. "How can you say such a thing? You deliberately escalated the situation. I wanted him to get angry. If she hid this from them, then now she will have to explain everything. And if they knew, then to hell with them, they deserved it." Jonathan headed north to the Oklahoma border. His mission was simple: collect as many losing slips as possible, stay in a hotel for a couple of nights, play a little at the casino, and maybe try to take a break. He didn't feel guilty about planning to sleep with another woman. As soon as his wife admitted to cheating for a year and said that she would continue to date this man, their marriage was completely destroyed for him. Now all that remained was to complete the paperwork. His phone started ringing a few minutes after he left the city, but he turned it off before reaching the border. Jonathan guessed that a storm would soon arise. Well, she made her choice. Let her deal with this herself now. It's not like she didn't have anyone to spend time with. On the first evening, he tried his hand at several gaming tables and then went to the bar. In less than half an hour, he was already talking with a beautiful woman who was ready to console him for a price. He felt a little uncomfortable at the thought of paying for sex as if he were cheating, but then he laughed. This woman did it for money, and his wife did this for love for a whole year, so at least he didn't involve feelings. After she left, he ran his hand over his new haircut with a smile. "Damn, this was the best sex I've had in years," he thought. The woman looked like a goddess and gave him the power to do whatever he wanted. The best $400 he'd ever spent. And this money, unlike others, his wife will never receive again. The next day, Jonathan wandered around the casino a bit, playing craps and poker, losing another couple of $100. He collected dozens of losing slips from keno and sports betting halls, worth thousands of dollars. He watched the show, and in the evening he found another woman who happily agreed to join him for money. She was older, closer to his age, but also very attractive and relaxed. He managed to negotiate for $300, and she gave him even more than the one from last night. Jonathan decided that he would not see his wife for a long time, so he took full advantage of the moment. Everything was so good that he even left her a $50 tip, and she handed him her business card, inviting him to call if he needed company again. Jonathan kept it. That night, as he lay in his empty bed, he felt a strange combination of contentment and loneliness. He thought about the broken marriage and what his wife was doing with this young lover. How damn selfish she is. How can you do this to your husband and children? Trade them for some random person? What is this man like who is after someone else's wife? Of course, a lawyer. They are all like that lying, treacherous scum. The real scum of society. The next morning, he slept a little longer and then stood up and looked at his reflection in the mirror. He shaved his head, making sure there were no unshaved areas, then applied aftershave. Trimmed the beard that was starting to grow. He almost didn't recognize the man looking back at him from the mirror. Jonathan returned home a little after noon. His wife's car stood in its place, and he mentally prepared for the upcoming battle. As soon as he entered the house, the children noticed him first and ran towards him with joyful cries. They laughed, touched his head, and asked where his hair went. They asked where he had gone and why he had not returned earlier. Susan stood in the doorway and looked at him with fury, barely able to contain herself. He talked cheerfully with the children. Dad had important business in another city, but I'm back, and now I won't have to leave again. Susan came closer and whispered quietly, "We need to talk, honey." "Soon," he answered coldly, without looking at her. "I want to be with the children. Missed them while they were with your parents." He sat in front of the TV with the children, discussing their time at their grandparents' house. "Do you like them? You see them often, much more often than other grandparents, right?" "We like it there," said the eldest, Cindy. "Grandma picks me and Joey up after summer school almost every day." Jonathan became wary. "Who looks after Nancy?" The younger girl nodded in agreement. Susan stood nearby and seemed to seethe with anger. "Jonathan, we need to talk," she said more sharply. "I, too, would like to have a faithful wife," he answered sharply. "Looks like none of us are getting what we want." She stepped back as if he had hit her. "Are you deliberately trying to ruin everything like this? Do you want children to learn about this now, here?" "We'll talk when I think I'm ready," he said calmly. "You were silent for 2 years. Now you're suddenly in a rush?" Susan turned around and ran into the bedroom, sobbing. "Why is Mom crying?" Joey asked. "She behaved badly and knows that trouble awaits her," Jonathan replied. "Did she break something?" asked Nancy, for whom this was the worst crime. "Yes, I broke something," he said, thinking about her fidelity, about his heart, and about the marriage that she betrayed. He spent a few more minutes with the children and prepared himself for the upcoming confrontation. He entered the bedroom and closed the door behind him. "How could you?" Susan screamed. "I told you we don't need to involve my parents in this." "I told you I don't want you to cheat," Jonathan said calmly. "Where the hell have you been the last 2 nights?" "Left. Where have you been for the last 2 years?" "Where? What are you up to?" "It's none of your business anymore. Once you chose him over me, you lost the right to ask me about it." She's tired of this kind of argument. "Why doesn't my phone work?" "I canceled your service, just like I canceled your health insurance, how I canceled your credit card." "Why? Why would you do this? Are you so petty?" "I'm not going to pay you. If you want to be a woman of easy virtue, do it for your own money," Jonathan explained. "I am not a woman of easy virtue. I fell in love with another man. Are you so superficial, so selfish, that you don't see the difference?" "So I'm selfish, because I want my wife to remember her wedding vows and remain faithful to me and our children." "Don't bring the kids into this." "No, you did it. Getting rid of them every day so you can spend time in bed with your lover." "We didn't spend time in bed. I took care of him. I helped him. He needed me." "How exactly did you take care of him, dear Susan?" "Don't be a smartass. I cooked, did the laundry, and cleaned a little. Sometimes she accompanied him. We talked. He took the time to talk to me. He understands me and doesn't ignore me." "So you were his wife, cooking for him while we ate takeout. Talked to him when you ignored me and abandoned your children. You exchanged this family for another. Wonderful. Let your other husband pay for your cell phone, for your insurance. Let him give you money for expenses and buy you nice clothes. Exchange sex for money from a man you are not married to. Are you saying that you are not a woman of easy virtue? Why are you doing this? It shouldn't be this way. We've been happy all last year, haven't we? I never forced you to do without it. Why can't we go back to the same state? Dawn, don't you love me at all? Have you ever loved me?" She whined, tears shining in her eyes. "I didn't know then that you were a cheater. Now, every time I see you, I imagine you in my arms, your lover, your young man." "It's not about sex, Jonathan. Not at all. You have to get over it. Give your fragile ego a break. It's about love and friendship. He takes care of me, and I take care of him. We love each other. Sex is just an expression of this love. I never said he was better than you. It's different, that's all. I need him. Everything is fine. Look at him as much as you want. I don't care. But as long as you see him, I don't pay for it. He loves you, he can pay for you. Don't think he didn't offer. He's rich. Not like you, working day and night to barely have a roof over your head. She pierced angrily, immediately regretting her words. What is this, Susan? Is it love, or do you just want to exchange? Are you angry because I'm working as hard as I can to give you the home you wanted to take care of our children? I work 60 hours a week to make sure you have everything you need. What are you doing? You don't work. You don't take care of the children. You almost never cook. What are you doing for this family? I, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to say this. I've always appreciated how hard you work for us. You, you make me so angry. Why can't we have things as they were? Stop dating him. Be a loving, faithful wife and a good mother. Then we'll see if things can't be the same as they were for a good 9 years before you ruined your marriage. I didn't throw anything away. I've always been by your side. I only saw him when you were working and the children were going to school. I always put my family first. How did you spend 2 nights at his house? When did I work? When were the children at school? You take me to him. You know what you did. I was afraid of you. The second night, you begged me to go to him. I know it's always my fault. You didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do it. I can't change my feelings. Jonathan sighed. This won't lead to anything. Are you going to stop seeing him? No. Then you are on your own. This is my bedroom. You can stay here, but I won't leave. I'll continue to feed you when you're home, and I'll leave the car payment so you can take care of the kids. It's going to be tough here. Why? What do you mean? I quit my job. It was too disruptive to my family. Did you quit your job without discussing it with me? Susan screamed. You slept with another man without discussing it with me? Jonathan mocked her. It's not the same, she said. I know. This is much worse. I will work for Uncle Len. I won't make anywhere near the money, but we can get by if we're careful. No more wasteful spending. I never waste money, she said. How much gas do you spend coming to Rich's house and your parents every day? How many lunches, meetings in coffee shops? Several seconds passed before she realized what he said. How? Who said his name was Rich? Richard Patton. Rich for his women of easy virtue. A paralegal and amateur who lives off the money he made by killing his wife. You have some kind of lover there. This is wrong. He didn't kill her. It was an accident. It's not his fault. And he's not a paralegal. He's a lawyer. He graduated from law school and passed the bar exam. He must work really hard if he can have sex with you all day long. Stop saying that, she screamed. Jonathan looked at her intently. I thought you were the one who wanted to do this in private. If you're going to scream, we might as well invite the kids. We don't spend all our days damn. If you're wondering, we only make love a few days a week. Did you ever have sex with me during those days when you slept with him? Jonathan asked. She blushed. I told you, it's not about sex. God, Susan, you are such a woman of easy virtue. You disgust me. Do you like making me sleep with you when you are with your lover? How much of a cuckold have you made me? No, Jonathan, don't say that. I would never do anything like that. I wouldn't do that to you. I love you. I wouldn't show it off. I don't want to hurt you. Please, can we not talk about this? I love you, darling. I want everything to be perfect between us. Can't you let me do this? I will make sure that you never regret it. I promise. Jonathan shook his head. Tell me when you stop seeing him. If I'm still here, let's see if there's anything left that can be salvaged in our marriage. He turned around and left the house, not wanting to continue the useless conversation. He made himself a sandwich and watched as his wife took one call after another in the bedroom. She approached him while he was cleaning the kitchen. It was my grandfather who called. He disowned me. Are you going to act like a complete bastard in this situation? Do you really want to start an argument you can't win? Stop dating him, Jonathan said. I'll go out for a while. I'll be back for dinner. It would be nice if you took the time to cook something for a change. You just arrived, she moaned. We still have to talk. After dinner, with the information the judge had obtained, Jonathan stood on the threshold of the Tudor-style house 10 minutes later. It was a beautiful house, bigger than his, much more than one person needs. The door opened. Yes? Jonathan stuck his foot in the door. I want you to stop sleeping with my wife. You killed your wife, and now you're killing my marriage. Stop it. The thin, small man looked at him in fear. He leaned on the door, trying to close it, but it did not budge. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop sleeping with Susan Fremont. Mrs. Jonathan Fremont, my wife. Don't get in the car with her again. If you kill her too, I will find you and make sure that the last minutes of your life are the most terrible on earth. I don't want a killer sleeping with the mother of my children. I'm not a killer. It was an accident, said the terrified man. You killed her. You live off the money you got for it. You spent this blood money to seduce and then sleep with my wife. Stop it. If you don't stop, I will, and you won't like it. You can't threaten me, the man whined. Stop sleeping with her, you pathetic worm. There are many single women that you can buy with the money you earn from murder. Leave my wife alone. Murderer. Jonathan walked away, confident that he had made his point. If Susan had been angry before, she was now furious when he returned home. She approached him angrily, and he calmly walked past, lifting his youngest daughter onto his lap, tickling her to make her laugh. I want to talk, please, Susan said, standing next to him. Speak. Alone. He shrugged, glad he'd pissed her off again. He walked into the bedroom. His wife followed him and closed the door. Did you attack him? Threatened him? Called him a murderer? Did you tell him that? She blurted out. Whom? I'm not sure. Who are you talking about? Damn it, you know exactly who I'm talking about. What are you doing? I told him I didn't want him to sleep with my wife. I don't think it's unreasonable. You called him a murderer. Yes, that's what I said. He killed his wife. I told him not to take you anywhere else. I don't want him to kill you too. Even if you are a woman of easy virtue, you are still the mother of my children. He didn't kill her. It was an accident. You have no right to say that. He was driving the car. She died. He killed her, as dead as if he had a gun to her head. How could you? It almost destroyed him. He loved her. He was so depressed that he almost died. It took me years to help him become what he is now. So if I make him depressed again, he might die and this nightmare will end, Jonathan asked. She looked at the man she had been married to for 11 years. How could he change so much in such a short time, to become so heartless, so insensitive? You're not saying this seriously. You couldn't do that. I would dance on his grave if it meant you would go back to being a good, loyal wife and putting your family first. She looked into his eyes and shuddered. She had no doubt that he was telling the absolute truth. He needs me, Jonathan. If you've ever loved me, even a little bit, you'll understand. He needs me. Let this end. Give me some time. When he's strong enough to be alone, I'll leave him. Can we do this? Please? We don't need to talk about it. I'll be invisible. Nobody will know anything. I will be the perfect wife. Don't make it worse. Do what you have to do, Susan. Obviously, I can't stop you. But while you are with him, you are my wife in name only. You will live in this house and take care of the children, but our love will be on the brink. I don't know how long this will last. I know you don't care, but it's only fair that you know. Don't say I don't care, darling. I still love you. I'll prove it to you. I just need a little time. If you can't accept this, then I will divorce you. I'll take your children and your house and make rich their father. Is this what you want? That will never happen, Susan. You should know this. How can you stop this? The law is on my side. You will pay. You will work yourself to exhaustion for children. you will never see, so that I can have my love, my home, and my children. You will have nothing left. That will never happen, Susan. Trust me, he said sadly. Don't put it to the test. She looked at him nervously. He was serious. She understood this. 11 years together had taught her that he was absolutely serious. You're not going to do anything stupid, are you? She asked. Stop dating him. And stop threatening me. He looked at her, challenging her, and she was the first to back down, running to the bathroom, crying at how it could have come to this. The carrot and stick method. That was the plan for Susan. Jonathan received hints for the carrot from the Eagles' wives. It was logical that the trio of women in their 70s knew how the female psyche worked. Obviously, I don't understand anything about this, he thought. Susan was beside herself after he pulled the rug out from under her. Especially, he decided to take care of the children himself and give her some time to rest. He eventually got them to bed, although Cindy tried to stay awake past 9 o'clock as she was now a big girl. He compromised by letting her stay up until 9:15 to stop the argument and to assuage his guilt for being gone for 2 days. When the house fell silent, he heard Susan talking on the phone. Perhaps it was a lover, or perhaps a friend whom she trusted. He didn't care. At this moment, it didn't matter to him. Jonathan opened a bottle of wine and selected 2 crystal glasses. He knocked on the bedroom door and waited for her to finish talking. She finally opened the door, looking at him with sad eyes. No need to knock. This is your bedroom, she said quietly. He walked past her and placed the tray on the nightstand. He remembered how she locked the door a couple of nights ago. My bedroom, right, he thought. I didn't want to interrupt you while you were on the phone, he explained. It was my sister Jenny. She wanted to know what was going on. Everyone is talking about us. You have created real chaos. He didn't start anything. She was the one who slept with someone else. Now is not the time to remind her of this. He poured a glass for her, stood up, and handed it to her. Rough week, huh? He wanted her to open up. She started talking. He was willing to listen as much as possible. She nodded. Terrible. I never wanted this, Jonathan. I thought everything would be the same, but not like that. Why are you complicating everything? He filled his glass and patted the bed next to him. Sit down next to me. Let's talk. Calm, civilized. I still love you, darling. She climbed onto the bed, her nightgown riding up on her hips as she sat cross-legged across from him. Shall we talk? No shouting, no accusations. He reached out and touched her. Yes, let's talk. What went wrong, Susan? How did I let you down that you had to look for what you were missing in the arms of another man? The ice around her heart began to melt. He really cared. It's difficult, honey. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Please tell me you believe it. Of course I believe, he said, barely restraining himself from lying. We wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't believe it. This should never have happened. It was just a chain of little things that accumulated. I started talking to him at a party, and he was so sad and depressed that I started to console him. The first time I made him smile, it was a big success, and the first cautious laugh was even greater. I felt good, like what I did mattered. She looked nervously at her husband, and he just nodded. It was wrong, I know, but I'm tired of being just a mom and a housewife. My days were monotonous to the point of dullness. Taking care of a toddler, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old, I never had time for myself. You were constantly busy. I know, God, Jonathan, it hurts to say this. I know you did it for us, for me, for the kids, for the family, but all you did was work, and then come home tired, and I felt unloved, like you didn't care about me. I was just a nanny and housekeeper. Jonathan remembered the advice of the older women. Don't argue about how she felt, whether she was right or wrong. Let her come to the right conclusions herself. Carefully guide her in this direction. Let her place some of the blame on you, accept it, and she will feel even more guilty. Sorry, honey, I should have noticed this. 10-hour days, 6 days a week, are pretty tiring when you have a physical job like I do. This is not an excuse to miss out on our relationship. I appreciated everything you did, although I may not have said it. She shook her head, her eyes shining with tears. I know it's not your fault. I could talk to you more about this, but you seemed distant. You had no time for me, for us. You drank more, always sat on the couch with a beer in your hands. I started to hate this damn sofa and this TV. You always had time for them, but not for me. Jonathan let her talk. I'm often under a lot of pressure. Beer is what I used to relieve stress. I didn't want you to feel the same pressure that I did. We laid off people, and the work became more and more, and the deadlines became stricter. I should have talked to you about this instead of keeping it all inside. She sniffled and wiped away her tears. I was bored, and it became my project. That was all in the beginning. There was nothing for a whole year. I didn't see him that way, I swear. I was pleased to help him, to see how he gradually recovered. I felt useful, and that was what I needed. This was our problem. It's not a lack of affection. It's not our intimate relationship. It's not that I stopped loving you. I never stopped loving you. I did what made me feel good, and I was proud of myself. I didn't do anything wrong except spend too much time with another man, but it wasn't romantic. It was like work, a job I did well. I can understand how this could happen. Everyone needs to feel useful. I hoped that being a wonderful mother and a wonderful wife could fill this need. I understand that you weren't getting what you were getting from him, Jonathan said, although he was finding it increasingly difficult to maintain his composure. Anything wrong? So why did you hide it for a whole year? She finished her wine and Jonathan refilled her glass. She took a long sip gratefully. Everything happened so quickly, I was not ready for it. First, there were phone calls, several meetings over lunch, or a cup of coffee. We talked like you, and I didn't do it anymore. It was easy to talk to him. He wanted to go to dinner, but I couldn't. I was a married woman. Lunch and dinner are different things. I offered to cook him dinner. It was a little strange at first, in someone else's kitchen, not knowing where everything was. A little exciting, to be honest. But then I didn't yet have romantic feelings for him. He was just a friend. Jonathan poured himself a glass. He didn't want to hear it. I didn't want details. He just wanted to know what was wrong with their marriage that she had to sleep with another man for a year. But not this sentimental nonsense about friendship. Men don't need female friends. He knew that the slug had intended to get his wife into bed from the very beginning. He wanted to shake her and explain it so that she would understand. Poor, pathetic me, playing on her maternal instincts. Instead, he tried to keep the conflict low-key, nodding occasionally as a sign of understanding. After that, it became easier to come to his house than to go out to public places. There was privacy, and we could talk more openly. Besides, I didn't want anyone to have any guesses about us. We were just friends. She looked at him with the hope that he would understand. Keep going, Jonathan said. She felt relieved that she could talk about it. He'll probably finally understand. All it takes is a little time for him to get over the shock, for his male ego to fade into the background. Once he understands why, everything will be fine. I helped him around the house. He was so disorganized. Cleaned up a bit. Helped rearrange things. He started everything after the accident with his wife. We talked even more. Could talk about everything. Sometimes we talked about our wants and needs. Then about your fantasies and dreams. About what we've done or what we'd like to try. It wasn't about sex. It was about communication, sharing, and understanding. He seduced you, Jonathan said involuntarily, although he had no intention of saying it. She looked at him in surprise. No, never. He was a friend. To those who needed me, and I needed him. Good friends can talk about these things. That was all. He's not like that. Jonathan bit his lip, waiting. If he opens his mouth now, the whole night will go down the drain. He tipped the bottle and poured her the last glass of wine. It just happened. I was in the kitchen, and suddenly we started kissing. I know I should have stopped, but it was a kiss between friends. And then, I don't even remember how I ended up in his bedroom. Her hand shook as she sipped her wine. She looked up at him, and he saw tears in her eyes. I never wanted this to happen. I felt terrible. I came home and went to the shower, washed myself, but I still couldn't get clean. I cheated on you for the first time in our entire marriage, and I hated myself for it. I knew you would see it in my eyes, but you just took the beer and sat on the couch. You didn't ask me, you didn't see the guilt. Then I thought, what if you don't care? She drank half the glass in one gulp. I tried to finish it. He called, and I told him to stop. I avoided him and didn't go where we went. I swore to myself that I would never do anything like that again, and that I would do anything to make it up to you. But then I found out that he was in the hospital. He drank a lot of sleeping pills, and I knew that it was because of me. I almost killed him. I went to him to help, but we promised each other that it would never happen again. I'm so sorry, Jonathan. I tried to stop it. I swear I tried. It hurt me so much to see him retreat into himself again. Jonathan was furious at his stupid, gullible wife and at this slippery predator. Come on, a few pills, a call to the hospital, and he got her again after she resisted his efforts. Damn bastard. Jonathan took the empty glass from her and placed it on the bedside table. She sobbed, and he pulled her to him, hugging her. If only she had talked to him then, all of this could have been avoided. He was almost sure that he could forgive her for one stupid mistake. But for a year of betrayal, and because she demanded to continue dating him, threatened him with divorce? No, he couldn't accept that. She will pay for this. They will both pay. He laid her on the bed. Darling, please. We haven't been together for so long, she whispered. No, honey. I can't be second to him. I can't do this. She reached out to him. You were never second. I love you. You are my husband. You are first, he is second. All nights are yours. They were always yours. You spent 2 nights in his bed. I'm sure as soon as I leave for work, you'll end up in his bed again. I only get minutes with you, and he gets all your time. He can give you gifts, tell you how wonderful you are, steal you from me. I can't do this. Honey, this hasn't been a problem for over a year. You don't even need to know. When I'm with you, I'm only yours. He tried. Damn how he tried. Her words were like knives cutting him into pieces. He let go of her and turned away from her on his side. Damned woman of easy virtue. I married a damn cheater. Susan didn't understand, couldn't understand what had just happened. He was so kind, loving, and understanding. And now he suddenly moved away. Why couldn't he just love her? Make love to her? Nothing has changed. She approached him, wrapping her arms around him. He was so strong, it made her feel small, feminine. She felt him tense, and a sharp pang of guilt ran through her. What if she had stopped then, at the very beginning, after the first time? She sighed. It's too late for that. She needs him to understand. Nothing will change. Everything can be fine, maybe even wonderful, like in the beginning. She needed him. How could he not understand this? Please, Jonathan, she whispered. I know you want me. I'm here for you. I will always be there for you. Never again as long as you continue to date him, Jonathan said coldly, rolling over onto his stomach. Susan turned away from him, hurt by his refusal. She didn't even try to hold back her tears, crying until she fell asleep. The next morning, Jonathan woke up early. A new day dawned, and he no longer felt helpless. He confronted his wife and her lover and insisted that it end. He began the journey that would end it all, with the help of family and friends. This also included quitting his old job and returning to the family ranch. And this meant getting up early. Susan was still asleep when he came downstairs for a quick breakfast. It involuntarily occurred to him whether she had gone to her lover. At the ranch, Uncle Len introduced him to those around him, although he already knew most of the people. His duties were explained to him, and he was placed under the leadership of old Miguel, who had been working with their family for 20 years. Uncle Len sent him a message asking Jonathan to come to the house for his lunch break. There was a rich table laid out, and Jonathan smiled when he saw his grandfather and friends waiting for him. He quickly gave them a 10-minute summary of what had happened over the weekend. The conversation with his mother and his wife's family, the visit to the casino, skipping the details about the sorority he found. He briefly described his actions towards his wife and his encounter with her lover. Grandfather spoke first. You should know that this has become Gray Briggs' personal project. Gray Brigg? Jonathan asked. The colonel explained, a senior center. All are pensioners. This will bring a little excitement into their lives. If this little cheater doesn't stop, she'll hear about it. That's for sure. Madge Johnson lives a few doors down from that bastard, Carl Jenkins said. Her daughter works in my store. They will watch the house. Whoever comes and goes, Madge and her sister will know all about it. The judge laughed. Her parents also get nuts. So sorry to hear what kind of woman your daughter turned out to be. Is that why your other daughter moved out? I'm glad I'm not on their bad side. You need to talk to the bank, John, Grandpa said. Change all contact information to my home. When there will be delays in payments so that they do not call your house and this cheating wife does not find out about it. The judge took out several documents. His wife, deceased woman. Her name was Heather. I have several photos. She is buried in the Methodist Church cemetery. The spectacle is terrible. The car caught fire. It was for this reason that he filed a lawsuit. The vehicle had a history of fires and accidents. Jonathan nodded. Good information that you could do something with. Thank you, sir. No problem. We take care of our own. He received his instructions. Hot and cold attitude towards wife. Launch an attack on your lover. Continue to protect assets. Transfer all financial contacts to grandfather's house. By the end of the day, Jonathan was hurting in places he didn't even know existed. He enjoyed working outdoors and being among old friends. He returned home, cleaned himself up, and began his second job working with his wife. That night, Rich Patton received a phone call from a blocked number. Hello? It's on fire, Richie. How could you let me burn like this? It hurts so much, whispered a female voice, trembling with pain. He remembered lying on the hard asphalt, watching his car go up in flames. He dropped the phone, the words bringing his pain to life. No, you can't bring the kids so we can look after them, Brenda said sharply. But Mom, I need to go out, Susan replied. Take your children with you. These are your children, Susan. Everything takes a lot longer when you have 3 kids to care for, she explained. What else do you do? It's not like you have a job or do a lot of housework. Are you going to run back to that bastard you're sleeping with? Her mother asked sarcastically. He's not a bastard. He's a good person. You don't understand. I understand that he is a scumbag who sleeps with another man's wife. God, you are such a disappointment to my father and me. We can't walk down the street without someone reminding us what you've become. Mother, how can you say that? Leave this bastard and go back to your husband on your knees. Ask him for forgiveness. Do whatever he wants every night for a year. Maybe it's not too late to save your marriage. I didn't do anything wrong, she protested. Susan, he should apologize to me. In response, she heard only beeps. Max Ritter sat at the table, addressing the group of people in front of him. They gathered in the card game room at the senior center. The door closed. More women than men, but everyone understood the situation. They have already divided responsibilities. The phone lines will be hot for the rest of the night. The first stage brought the Gray Brig up to speed. The second stage is to start putting pressure on the next generation. Make it clear that such behavior will not be tolerated. In a few days, the whole city will know about it. Cheating was not a problem. It happened. Hell, probably more than half of the people in the room had cheated on their spouses at least once, maybe more than once. But the sheer disrespect, the expectation that the spouse would accept the ongoing betrayal, and the almost complete abandonment of the family, while hoping to save the rest of his life, family and friends, it was too much. No, everyone agreed, such behavior on the part of both traitors was unforgivable. Or make peace, or break up, but not like that. Disgusting. Generation me. They will be reminded, reproached, insulted, and condemned wherever they go. No, this behavior could not be allowed to spread. Responsibilities were shared, tasks assigned, options discussed and weighed. When the room was almost empty, the colonel was left with 5 comrades. This is the unpleasant part. Does everyone understand what is involved here? Risk. His lifelong friends all agreed. They were up to the task. John Crumb took over leadership. The keys to Rich's house were passed along the chain from his wife's key ring through Jenkins' store and then into the hands of the conspirators. Photos, documents, letters, all the history that we managed to find. The first step was to gather more information. They will be informed when he will not be home. The Gray Network will be watching. Once they determine the right moment, the first hack will occur, and they will collect as much data as possible. Only then will Operation Guilt begin. Some of them felt a little uncomfortable with what they were about to do, but not enough to stop. Some of them felt a little awkward about what they were about to do, not enough to stop them. Susan parked in his garage and quickly closed the door behind her. She took off her hat and sunglasses, embarrassed that she was wearing a disguise. It was funny. She had every right to see Rich. She entered the house through the garage and happily accepted his hug. They didn't talk about anything other than missing each other as they retired to his bedroom. After half an hour and 2 sessions, he sat down and looked down at her. "How did you ruin everything? No one at the company even talks to me." Susan was stunned by his accusation. How did she ruin everything? He uses her to get off, not even caring about her satisfaction after the nights she gave him. She faced her husband alone, facing his anger and accusations. And now this her guilt. "You wanted to stop hiding. I wanted to spend the night. It was your idea to tell him, to force him to accept us, to threaten him with divorce and children." "How the hell did this become everyone's business?" he snapped. "I don't know. Gossip. He told his family and mine about it. They still barely talk to me. Word must have gotten out by now. You were supposed to keep this a secret, just between the two of you. How did he know it was me? Where did I live?" Rich was furious with anger. "How do I know? I talked to him the same way we discussed. I told him how it was. You are a man. You should have known how he would react. I'm not some Neanderthal who can't keep his woman. Do I have to remove half of my brain to think like him?" Susan could hardly believe his words. Disrespect, anger. Where did it come from? She began to pull on her clothes before saying something she regretted. Rich reached out to her. "Where are you going?" "We're not done yet. You just arrived. It's been a week since we've been together." "You shouldn't talk about Jonathan like that. He didn't do anything wrong. He's a good person. We are the ones who want to change the rules." "A good person, spreading rumors and gossip about us. Ignore you, don't respect you. What's good about this?" Rich barked, standing between her and the door. She buttoned her blouse and combed her hair back. Plenty of time to get ready for when she gets home. She was grateful that her mother-in-law accepted her excuse that she had to pick up some job applications. "It's time for me to go. I'll be late." He moved towards her, pulling her into his arms. "What about us, Susie Q? I miss you. We need some time together. Tell him you'll spend the night here. He already knows. We need to reconnect. You are everything to me. You know how much I love you. I can't go days on end without you. I need you." She listened to his plea, knowing it was true. Without her, he would have returned to his old habits. She took his face in her hands and kissed him tenderly. "We'll figure something out. No sleepovers. What would I tell the kids? Impose them on your parents again." She sighed. "It will be a cold day in hell before they see them again. They made that very clear." She wanted to pull away, but he pressed against her, needy. "Come after they fall asleep. I need to feel you in my arms again when I fall asleep. Don't you want this?" She nodded, but if she were honest with herself, she would admit that she hated being away from her children at night. She didn't sleep well at Rich's. She smiled to herself. "Let me think about it, okay? I need to get things settled at home before I cause any more trouble. How about a quickie before you go, to keep me? His heartless words hurt her. Was that all she was to him? I have to go, Rich. I'll be late anyway. I can't afford to alienate my last nanny. He pushed her. You promised that you would never refuse me, Susan. You said you love me. I need it. It will only take a few minutes. She did not allow the tears to flow. She mechanically did what he asked. Max answered Madge's call. In general, the cheater spent almost 2 hours with him, sneaking through the night like a thief. He called his daughter and scolded her. What the hell were you thinking, Carolyn? Looked after the kids while she went to cheat. She said she was looking for a job, accepts applications. And you believed the lying traitor after everything she did. Carolyn was unhappy when Susan showed up at her door 20 minutes late. She helped gather the children and put them in the car. Before Susan could leave, Carolyn grabbed her hand. Never again, you lying traitor. Using me to cover your ass while you cheat on my son. Susan flinched at the harsh words. I don't. Save the lies for someone else. You smell like betrayal. You could at least clean yourself up before you take my grandchildren. What the hell is wrong with you? In the battle of shame and anger won. If you never want to see the kids, that's fine with me. I didn't do anything wrong. You'll never have to watch them again. You'll be lucky to see them. Susan was shocked when Carolyn hit her. He's right. You are just a woman of easy virtue. Jonathan was sitting with his grandfather after a long, hard day. The last thing he needed to hear was that his wife was sleeping with him. I don't want to know, grandfather. Honestly, I don't care. She asked your mother to look after the children. She said she was receiving some job applications or some other nonsense. Jonathan's anger increased until his hands began to shake. No one will look after my children until I say everything is okay. Nobody. Not you, not Mom, not even the neighbor's nanny. Don't blame your mother for this. She was trying to do the right thing. She has the right to see her grandchildren. I don't blame her. This is the traitor lying under my roof. I'll talk to Mom myself. Mom, what is Jezebel? Cindy asked. And what? Susan asked, surprised by the older woman's words. Dana's grandmother said you were a Jezebel. Susan felt her blood pressure rise. She had no right. The old bitch had no right to talk to her daughter like that. It's nothing, baby. Old people are saying something. But not in front of her daughter, if she could. No more dates with Dana. It was damn accurate. Rich didn't notice any glances or whispered comments as he walked into his old employer's office. It was nice to maintain a relationship, and his regular monthly dinners were one way to do that. He waited patiently in the lobby. 20 minutes later, he realized something was wrong. As each new person exited the elevator, he saw glances and whispers. No one maintained eye contact. Something happened. He called. Jean, I'm in the lobby having lunch, he said. There was silence on the other end. I don't think I can come today. Did something happen? I haven't seen Eric or Dan either. It's just not a good idea right now. Things are kind of hectic. Maybe some other time. I'm very busy. I have to go. Rich listened to the dead air on the other end of the line. A quick call to Eric didn't help. We've been having a regular lunch for over 2 years now, Eric. What's happening? He heard the anger in the man's voice. Your girlfriend? You make us believe that you guys are serious and engaged. You never said that she is married and has 3 children. You used us to cover for you. Now we all feel like idiots. My wife would kill me if I went out to dinner with you. No, I don't think we'll be going out to dinner anytime soon. He looked up from the phone, feeling eyes on him. He walked up to the revolving glass door and joined the crowd exiting the building. Here, she's married. He heard a whisper in front of him. Cake and eat it 3 children. From behind. 2 million for killing his wife. Echoed in his ears as he hurried down the sidewalk. The end of summer turned out to be a difficult time on the ranch. Most days from dawn to dusk, I'm checking fences, Working on irrigation, I'm distilling herds from pasture to pasture. It was almost time for the second hay cutting, which was a blast while the weather lasted. Uncle Len still stuck to Grandpa Max's ways for the most part. Ranching became largely mechanized, with pickup trucks replacing horses in many jobs. Shridders continued to adhere to the practice of traveling as little as possible and for the shortest distances possible. Gas costs money. Much of the work could be done on horseback, especially when it came to moving herds and checking pastures. Jonathan forgot how painful it is for a person to ride a horse for 10 hours a day. How tiring it was carrying around 40-pound backpacks, digging trenches, replacing fence posts. He was looking forward to haymaking, which mostly involved driving around the area. Most ranchers were, by necessity, jacks of all trades. The standard motto on the ranch was, "If it's broken, we fix it." His expertise with cars, engines, and everything mechanical was almost revered. No sending ranch cars to work. If it was broken, Jonathan could fix it. He may have been clumsy in the pasture and clumsy at herding stray animals, but his mechanical ability and willingness to do whatever the job required won him the admiration of his colleagues. He liked it. Every evening he came home tired, sore, and hungry, but he could not remember being so satisfied with his achievements at the end of each day. It wasn't until he returned home and had to deal with the anger, disrespect, and judgment of his supposed wife and significant other that he came down. Every evening before entering the house, he gathered himself, reminding himself of his plans and goals. This won't last forever, he told himself. The first photograph of his dead wife was slipped under Rich's door shortly after he went to bed. Someone wrote in white marker, "Heather Patton." His hands shook as he picked it up. How could something so terrible be done? So disgusting. Didn't they know how much he regretted it? How bad did it hurt? It was an accident. It wasn't his fault. He loved her. He sat on the floor and cried until he fell asleep. Susan unloaded the car with groceries. What should have been a simple 20-minute ride took over an hour. The children ran inside, each carrying a bag. It was a painful walk, seeing the glares, the judgmental looks. Nobody wanted to talk to her, but whispers accompanied her everywhere. In some cases, I could barely contain my laughter. Did the whole world know about her relationship? "Hey, Susan!" shouted her curious neighbor, almost running over her. Shit. The last thing she needed. "Hi, Margie." "So what is he like, this young lover? What's the point?" Susan felt her face turn red. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Come on, Susie. You can tell me. Everyone knows. You and that young lawyer guy, the one who killed his wife. Isn't it scary? Maybe exciting? Don't you think he would do this to you? When he's done with you, what about you?" Susan could not believe the bile that flowed from the lips of local gossips. It was an accident. He didn't kill her. It certainly paid off handsomely for the accident. So what is it? I bet he's amazing in bed. I mean, really, leave a real man to this skinny kid? Susan slammed the back of the car, turned and walked into the house without saying a word. Jonathan held her in his arms as she cried in their bed. He felt quite happy with the way things were going. "What happened, baby?" "They are terrible. Everyone treats me terribly. They think I'm a woman of easy virtue." "You are a woman of easy virtue." "SHH," he whispered. "Everything will work out. Do what is right and ignore it." Why can't they understand? Haven't they ever been in love before? I can't help it. He held her. "You still have us, your family. We love you." She sobbed. "You? Do you love me, Jonathan?" "I've always loved you, baby." "Love me, Jonathan. Please," she begged. "God, how I wish I could. I want you so much," he lied, his breath tickling her ear. "Can. I wasn't with him. Since last night, I'm yours, darling." Still lying. Madge reported seeing her at her home just a week ago. 3 hours there. At least she was lying about it instead of throwing it in his face. A kind of progress. "I'm afraid," he said quietly. "I know you're not the only woman he's been with. I don't know if he infected you with anything, any disease." She tensed. How could you think that? You don't use protection with him, do you? Jonathan asked. I, I don't want to talk about it, squinted she. I can't be with you until I know you're clean. But we've been doing this for a year now, no problem. Thanks for reminding me. They checked me. I'm clean. It's not fair to risk the lives of both our children's parents. He sleeps with other women. Who knows what diseases they might have? He wouldn't do that. He loves me. You love me, and you did it, Jonathan reminded her. I am your wife, Jonathan. Make love to me. He pulled her towards him, hugging her. I wish I could, baby. Not until I know you're clean and done dating him. Magazines began to appear. Miss Cosmo, Good Cleaning, Southern Life, Houses and Gardens, all addressed to Heather Patton, constant reminder. There was a large painting taped to his front door. Under the words, loving wife, someone wrote, killed and replaced by an unfaithful woman of easy virtue. He tore the image into small shreds and spent hours clearing the chalk inscription from the gravestone, long after all the writing had disappeared. The police found him after the call and questioned him about his actions, threatening him for vandalism. He became enraged, screaming and crying, and had to be handcuffed before he calmed down enough to explain himself. They checked his ID and compared it to the tombstone. One of the officers looked at him with disgust. Oh, you, wife kidnapper, yes, we know you. 3 days later, he was cleaning her gravestone again. Yes, I received your previous messages. No, I cannot make a payment. I lost my job and I have no money. Max Ritter hung up, grinning. Third call in 2 weeks. Everything was definitely going according to plan. He looked at the photo in his hand and smiled. He gave it to the boy after work. This should help. It didn't prove anything, but it should help sow the seeds of discontent. He examined the papers scattered on the kitchen table. Observations, comments, background. Information received from the bastard's house. A wealth of information. It was interesting and fun for Max to have something to do. A new goal, albeit temporary. Correcting a mistake. Punishment of the guilty. These two were very, very guilty. The ranch is not closed on weekends. Jonathan worked, but took his family with him. He lifted his eldest daughter onto the saddle of an old quarter horse. Do you really think this is safe? Asked Susan. I've been doing this for 4 generations now. Buttercup is a gentle horse. She will take care of our girl. Cindy beamed with pride, her hand stroking the horse's mane, leaned over and talked to her. Jonathan took the bridle in his hand and walked, watching his firstborn, seeing how she kept her balance, pushing her knee to show her how to sit properly. He thought it was funny that the girls were always so willing to ride. After making a few turns, he handed the reins to his girl, and her smile warmed his heart. She had already begun to cope with this, moving in an old Western saddle, gliding along with the movements of the horse. He saw a change in the horse, its calmness. She knew her handler was comfortable and doing everything right. Your turn? He asked Susan. Are you crazy? She asked. Come on, Susan. Relax a little. Try. With just a little prodding, he pulled her into the saddle and began to explain everything. She was nervous, more nervous than Cindy had ever been. His daughter seemed to already be living in the saddle. She moved the horse next to her mother, talking and laughing until Susan relaxed enough to move beyond a crawl. Jonathan put his foot in the stirrup and climbed onto the big gray horse. With a cackle, a pat on the neck, and a click of his heels, he trotted off, returning to a calm gait once he was next to his 2 girls. Not so bad, is it? Do you do this every day for several hours? Asked Susan. Sometimes. Every day is different. There are times when I hardly leave the garage. Do you like it? She asked. Adore. He looked at his daughter, seeing energy in her, a desire to do more, to trot, to gallop, to become one with the horse. He mentally reproached himself for not putting her on the horse earlier. They are farmers after all. 5 generations already. It's in their blood. He was a fool to deny it for so long. Rich sat up in bed, listening. Here she is, crying, sobbing, he thought. The sound stopped. He closed his eyes, trying to force himself to sleep. Unsuccessfully. When the quiet sobs began again, he pulled the pillow over his head, trying to muffle them. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. Outside, John took a sip of his cold coffee. 1 more hour and his shift will be over. He adjusted his headphones and listened to the bastard whine. He pressed the remote control, turning on recording number 3, the sound of a burning fire. It was an accident, he heard a cry. John would give him 5 more minutes, and then play tape number 1, a pathetic cry. It was a tough record. Sometimes it gave him goosebumps, because Diane was on it. "Jonathan?" He hugged his wife around the waist. "Yes, dear? I need money. I'm almost out of gas." Jonathan quickly withdrew his hand. "Take it from your lover." "Please, I have an interview at Jenkins Hardware." "I didn't know you were looking for work," he said. "I'm worried about our finances. Nancy can start kindergarten this year, and I can work while the kids are at school." "You won't spend money to see your lover, right?" "No, Jonathan, I promise. We need money for gas, to go to interviews, and to take care of our children. What if something emergency happens? My tank is empty." He took out his wallet and gave her 2 20s. "I trust you. Don't make me look like a fool." "I wouldn't do that. I love you." "You've done this before," Jonathan said coldly. She lowered her head. Why doesn't Rich answer her calls? Is he really dating someone else? That photo of that prostitute from his old office leaving his house. How he hugged her. Did he really replace it so quickly? They haven't spoken for over a week. I'm sorry." Jonathan looked at his salary. The 50% he received directly was barely a third of what he earned in his previous job. And even this would not have happened if Uncle Len had not raised his salary when he took over the maintenance of all farm machines. Considering the money his grandfather received secretly, it wasn't much less than what he was earning before overtime. Uncle Len talked about how Jonathan could get a share of the profits if he stayed on the farm. It was only 1% per year for the first 5 years, but it could be a nice increase. He will become a partner. Small, but it gave me a sense of pride. He would never become the majority owner. It would go to Len's eldest son, although Will has shown no interest in the family business so far. That's how they arranged everything. But his mother received 10% of the business's profits, and if he stayed, it could one day be his. He pulled up his pants, thinking that he would soon have to buy new ones. "This is the second time I've had to change them." He didn't know what his waist size was now, but he had to punch 2 new holes in the belt. All this outdoor work was changing him. He joined the rest of the employees for a payday celebration at the Spur and Saddle Bar. Mikey, the giant with his childhood nickname, poked him in the side. "This beauty seems to be looking at you." Jonathan looked towards the table where 3 women were sitting. The little red-haired girl was clearly giving him signs. He caught the bartender's attention. "What are they drinking?" he asked, nodding towards the table. "Jug of Shiner beer." "I have one too." The old bartender nodded, winked at him, and placed the pitcher in front of him. He walked up to the table, standing next to an empty chair, with a beer in his hands. "Just so you know, I'm not Greek," he said. The girls looked at each other in confusion until a smile appeared on the redhead's face. "And did you bring gifts?" she asked. He winked at her, placed the pitcher on the table, picked up the old pitcher, filled their glasses, and returned to the bar. A minute later, the blonde tapped him on the shoulder. "Are you kidding? Won't you even join us for a beer?" "I gave up beer," he explained. She glanced at his glass. Jonathan chuckled. "I haven't given up on Jim Beam yet." "Then take your Jim Beam and sit with us." An hour passed happily in the company of lovely girls. He received 2 phone numbers and 3 hugs, one with a nice kiss. Maybe grandfather was right. Everything turned out to be as simple as shelling pears. Susan's life is going downhill. She became the laughing stock of the city, ridiculed and insulted at every turn. She stopped buying her expensive coffees and switched to Dunkin' Donuts. That's all she could afford. She was standing in line at the drive-thru when the old man brought her coffee. He looked at her and walked away from the window, walking around the corner before returning with a grin on his face. He handed her coffee through the window. "Here's a special order for cheaters," he said, grinning. Her hand shook with anger as she took it. She noticed that the lid was not closed properly. She didn't even want to think about what he did with it. She recalled causing a scene by complaining about service at McDonald's. She was humiliated and ridiculed right in the store. The manager laughed loudest. She looked at the old man with hatred, opened the lid, and poured out the coffee. The bastard smiled. "Maybe you're not as stupid as they say you are." Rich was afraid to plug his phone into a charger. He never knew when his wife would call him again, haunting him, blaming him for her pain and suffering. Logically, he understood that it was not her. But when he woke up in the middle of the night from that whispering voice begging him to stop suffering, all logic left him. It seemed to him that everywhere he went, people were looking at him. They condemn him, accused, they despise. It's not his fault. Why can't they understand this? It was an accident. These little notes were the worst. Little reminders written in her neat handwriting. "Remember that bar. Do you still have that dress? What did I wear for our anniversary? Cancun, Richie, remember Cancun? Why, Richie? Why?" Yes, he remembered all this. He opened the albums that Susan had hidden, stealing his memories. How beautiful she was, Heather, on the deck of the ship. How they walked through the ruins. God, how he loved her. And now she's dead. His fault. He took another sip from the bottle, feeling the alcohol burn his throat. She trusted him, and he let her down. He never wanted this. "It was an accident, honey," he muttered, tears falling onto the photographs. Max, Judge, Colonel, and John sat, sorting out their notes. The Colonel unfolded a map on which all the clashes over the past month were marked with colored dots. "Do you think he will run away soon? Almost never goes out in public," asked John Crum, looking through the latest entries. "He will break before she does." "Stubborn woman," Max said, respect evident in his words. "Maybe we should ease the pressure a little, give them both time to realize how bad it is," suggested the judge. "The hell with it," Max replied sharply. "She wants to be stubborn, so we'll push it even more." The judge shook his head. "Judith won't like this," he muttered. The others laughed. 52 years together, and you're still under the thumb," teased John. "But I still get mine," replied the judge. "How's Rosie doing?" "Okay, that's enough," the colonel interrupted them. "We have a couple of calls to make. It's time to pick up the pace." Poor bastards. Susan wiped her face in shock. This old woman spat in her face. She was sitting near the cafe where they had met before. It had been almost 2 weeks since she last heard from him. She even plucked up the courage to come to his house, but he did not open the door. His car was there, so he had to be somewhere nearby. She used her key and opened the door, but it was on a chain. "Rich?" she called. "Rich, honey? It's me." No answer. There was a musty smell in the house. It was dark inside. Maybe he left. "I left with that woman of easy virtue from the photo. He drives her car. How could he do this to her? What was she guilty of?" She took a walk down memory lane, returning to their favorite cafe. There they had long conversations. She sat and remembered his voice, his touch, lost in her memories. "A woman of easy virtue," hissed a woman as she walked past on the sidewalk behind the fence surrounding the visitors' area. She was shocked. She heard whispers around her. I heard outright laughter. She wiped her face with a napkin, tears rolling down her cheeks. How could her life fall apart so quickly? She had everything. Loving family, good man, young love, great sex. And now, all she had left were the memories and the hatred of everyone she knew. It wasn't fair. What did she do wrong? She couldn't do anything about it. She never wanted this. She never looked for it. It was love. Irresistible. It's not her fault. She looked up as a young guy sat down opposite her. He grinned cheekily. "Such a beautiful lady shouldn't cry. How about I buy you a drink?" She shook her head. "No, thank you. I'm married." He shrugged. "I haven't heard of that ever stopping you." Come on, let's have a couple of glasses and have some fun. You are very beautiful. Fun? What is she to them now? Please leave me alone, she said. He stood up, leaning closer. If you change your mind, we'll be at the Spur and Saddle Bar. Have you ever been with three guys? We'll keep you entertained all night. Leave me alone, she screamed at him. Damn, lady, don't make a scene. Just thought a girl who likes fun would want to have some fun. Nothing personal, okay? She hid her face in her hands and could not hold back her tears. Jonathan watched as his grandfather handed the rope to his son. He explained how to hold the loop correctly, at what distance the two ropes should be held parallel, about a foot from the knot, how to roll it correctly, how to hold your other hand. Their target was a pole sticking out of a hay bale. This was his third attempt. He twisted the rope, first from the side, then above his head, learning to time it correctly, before suddenly throwing his hand forward. The loop retained its shape and fell onto the pole. Both Jonathan and Susan applauded, as did Cindy. Little Nancy was too busy playing with Blue, Grandpa's old working dog, a 12-year-old heeler. Dogs like these were standard on the ranch. Jonathan couldn't remember his grandfather not having at least one. When they started limping, slow to get up after a long rest, he couldn't just put them down. No, he couldn't do that. These were his friends, and no one could say that he was not loyal. They moved into the house, grew old, grew fat, and enjoyed the last years of life with their owner. Always there, waiting for the lightest touch, a word of praise. Always faithful. Their devotion was rewarded. Grandpa put his hand on Joey's shoulder. Jonathan remembered that touch. How good it made him feel. A little sloppy, but it's a start. This was as close to praise as one could expect from a grandfather. One day, his son will treasure this. Jonathan felt Susan lean against him and put his arm around her shoulders. He is good with children. I would never have expected this, she said quietly. He's always been like this. Some of the best days of my life were spent here, with him and Dad. We had some great times too, didn't we? She said, hugging his waist. It was so nice to be together as a family, working with the kids, enjoying time outdoors. Yes, they were. It's not too late, right? To have more moments like this, like family, like husband and wife. He shrugged. I don't know, Susan. Honestly, I'm not sure. Rich stood at the reception desk, pleading with the woman sitting there. Please, I have to see her. She must have time for me. The gray-haired woman pretended to look at the schedule. Sorry, Mr. Patton. Dr. Schieffer is full-time. Maybe next week. Oh, sorry, she's on vacation next week. Perhaps in 2 weeks. You really should make an appointment in advance. I tried. You must accept me. I don't know what will happen to me. I'm very sorry, sir. This is not possible for at least 2 weeks. Would you like to make an appointment for that Thursday, 2 weeks from now, at 3:30 p.m.? 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Can she at least renew my prescriptions? She's very busy today, getting ready for her vacation. Why don't you go home and I'll talk to her when I can? We'll call you if she can see you tomorrow before we leave. Rich nodded slowly and slouched out the door, defeated. Roll away, you dirty wife stealer, Ellen thought. She picked up the phone and made a call. Susan hung up. She didn't know why she even tried. Now only a dial tone answered her calls. He can't be on the phone all the time. Where is he when I need him? She thought. She sacrificed a lot for him. Your time, your loyalty, your family, perhaps even your marriage. She rushed to him whenever he called, and now he ignored her. It wasn't fair. Susan didn't know that blocking her calls was easy. The last time John Crum was in this scoundrel's house, he dialed #60 and blocked her home and mobile phone numbers through the menu. Jonathan did the same with his home phone and her cell phone, blocking his lover's calls. It will be a long wait before they can call again. Jonathan jerked the reins sharply, moving the stubborn old cow. He tried to understand why she had veered away from the gate, instead of following the rest of the herd to new pasture. She turned as if to hide in the bushes, but Vincent, his cattle dog, bit her leg, forcing her to turn around. Jonathan noticed that the cow was shifting her weight carefully and thought she might have been injured. It took a lot of effort to drive it where it was needed. 2 ropes around the neck and an hour of struggle, and the cow was weakened enough that she could be approached and examined. The job, of course, is for 2, but today there weren't enough people. He could handle it himself. Miguel found him there, tending to a cut on her leg, approaching slowly so as not to scare her. "It's dangerous to be alone," said the old man. "I didn't want her to get into the bushes or start limping. Thought, I can handle it in an hour." An experienced eye examined his work and, after a short thought, nodded. "Can you handle it?" "Yes, sir. I'll drive her through the gate by evening." "Close the gate behind you." Jonathan felt a sense of pride in his work that he hadn't felt in too long. His shoulders ached, his arms were rubbed to blisters, and he is unlikely to be able to return before dark. But he was happy as he had not been for a long time. He removed the ropes, talking quietly to the cow, calming her down. Vincent sat nearby, waiting patiently. Jonathan patted him on the head, praising him for his work. "Well done, Vincent." He smiled, remembering how Joey had chosen the dog's name. His son thought that the color of the dog's coat, a mixture of blue, black, and gray, along with the large light gray patch on its side, resembled Van Gogh's Starry Night. Jonathan didn't see it, but he was proud that his son even knew who Van Gogh was. Grandfather agreed that the name Vincent was better than just dog. She was dressed in a light translucent peignoir. The outline of her red panties was barely visible. She nervously handed him the drink. "Where are the children?" Jonathan asked. "At your mom's." He raised an eyebrow. "Until the morning. Please don't be angry. We need some time alone." He smelled steak coming out of the oven. He was dying of hunger. Although lately he has always been hungry. Hard work does the trick. She pulled him towards his chair and sweetly tried to take his boots off. When the second boot came off, she plopped down on the floor, and he laughed as he looked at her, dressed for play, with his dusty boot in her hand, sitting on the floor, legs out to the sides, her tiny red panties in full view. She stood up and called him to the dining table. On his plate was a large T-bone steak and a baked potato with stuffing. On hers, there is a small fillet and asparagus. One of the benefits of working on a farm is that there is plenty of free meat. There was a piece of paper above his plate. He picked it up, and she said quietly, "I'm clean. I haven't seen him since that night. I won't be with him anymore." He stood up and walked over to her, hugging her. "Sorry, I know this is hard for you." She shook her head. "No, don't apologize. It's me who needs to apologize. I don't know how this happened. Please forgive me." He picked her up, and she squealed, "What about dinner?" Jonathan carried her into the bedroom. "We'll warm it up later." Almost 2 months have passed. It's been 2 months since they had sex. Jonathan lost control of himself. They showered together, and he held her in his arms as they fell asleep. "I'll miss this." Susan walked out the back door of the ranch looking for her children. Her legs were sore from standing all day, but now she was back with her family. She saw a group of men gathered in a circle inside the fence. She started to rush forward when she saw some kind of fight going on. Len's wife, Grace, leaned against the fence. She grabbed Susan's hand. "Leave them alone." "What's happening?" Susan asked desperately. She noticed her son standing next to Jason Crum, one of the boys in Cindy's class. "They're teaching your boys some self-defense lessons," Grace explained, holding on to Susan's tense arm. "I don't want him to fight. I don't think you want to get his ass kicked." Susan was surprised to see her daughter Cindy come out with a tray of drinks. The 10-year-old girl walked up and stood in front of her brother, giving him the opportunity to make the first choice. She then turned to Jason and, blushing, offered him one. "What does this all mean? Cindy would rather kick Joey's ass than wait for him. They fight like cats and dogs." Grace pulled Susan up to the railing, wrapping her arms around her waist. He saved her bacon, fought for her. He got his ass kicked for it. Susan gasped. He doesn't fight. We don't allow this. It's good what he did today. A couple of boys at school thought that since Cindy was her mother's daughter, she would be easy to fool around with. Here's how Jason told it. They are children. Fights don't solve anything. They had to go to the teachers. Grace looked at her with disgust. Are you stupid? He could have been killed. It doesn't change anything. You should be proud of him. Protect the family. Men will make sure he knows how to hold his own in a fight. Now leave the boy alone. This is their world. Cindy walked over to where they were both standing, leaning against the railing and watching. Are you okay, baby? Susan asked hesitantly. Her daughter replied absent-mindedly, her attention focused on the crowd. Isn't he gorgeous, Mom? Her daughter's enchanted gaze did not escape her. Who, Cindy? Jason. They will never contact me again, as long as Jason and Joey are around. Susan didn't hear Max come up behind her. You raised some damn good kids, Susan. No matter what they say about you, it cannot be taken away. You can be proud of your son. I know I'm proud. I'm proud of him. Don't let him get hurt, Max. Please, she said quietly. Max laughed. He's not the one you have to worry about. The boy is strong. He doesn't give up, that's for sure. Where is my husband? Why isn't he here? She asked, looking around. Irrigation problems. He probably doesn't yet know what happened here. He'll be back soon. On a ranch, work doesn't stop because of one fight. Susan remembered Grace's words that Cindy, like her mother, was easily accessible. Her reputation made her daughter a target. It wasn't fair. It was all unfair. Now her children suffered because of this. Will her nightmare ever end? Oh my God, this is going to be something terrible, Officer Banks said, covering his nose with a handkerchief. His partner took Vika's out of his pocket and smeared some under his nose. He handed the container to the young guy. He will soon learn. They called again, but received no answer. The house was in a terrible state. Papers were scattered, dirty dishes in the living room and kitchen. The smell was especially strong from deep inside the house. They followed him into the bedroom, eyes watering from the stench. Damn it, Banks screamed. It's just disgusting. I never understood how a person could commit suicide because of some woman. Officer Gilroy shook his head. He turned to his partner. Call. There's nothing left for us to do here. Jonathan sat with the eagles, all eyes on him. I thought he would run away. I didn't expect that he would decide to die, said the grandfather. He had to get away from this house and all the memories. This was not what I wanted. Maybe he really was depressed. Jonathan shrugged. It doesn't bother me. That bastard got what he deserved. Do you still want to continue with the rest? Grandfather asked him. Carl Jenkins intervened. She works well in the store. It will be a shame to lose her. Now she only talks about you and the family. I don't know if it's important, but she definitely seems in love with you. Jonathan nodded. I believe that she loves me, or at least as much as she can understand this feeling. No, it doesn't change anything. She's back now, but who knows when she'll try the same thing again. I want to continue, bring it to completion. His grandfather grabbed his wrist, squeezing it so hard it hurt. Those old hands could crack nuts, they could turn his bones to mush. Jonathan understood. It was as close to a hug as you could expect from him. It will be difficult for the children. They're good, you know. How they just came out of this woman, I don't know. But they came out. I know, Jonathan replied. I'm not going to deprive her of them. I just can't come to terms with what she did. A year is too much. Susan was tired, but felt that things were getting better. It's been more than 3 months since her world collapsed. It was hard. Real torture, to be honest. But it got better. Time spent on the ranch with the children brought them benefits and helped them heal their wounds. She smiled to herself. Sex. There was nothing to complain about here. He had never been like this before. He came home tired from working on the ranch, but he was rarely too tired to give her a late-night workout. His energy was on point, and she was the lucky recipient of it. She knew that her decision to be open to new things, to do everything she did with Rich and more, was helping. He deserved it, all of it. He loved her. He forgave her. These words were almost a whisper right in her ear. I love you, Susan. I've always loved you, and I always will. I want you to know that I forgive you. I forgive you for everything. I'm sorry. She burst into tears, hugging him with all her might. His strong arms held her, supported her. He made love to her again. Everything will be fine, even better than good. Jonathan returned home earlier than usual. Now it was time to select livestock, but the morning rain ruined everything. Uncle Len knew it was an important day for him, so he let him go early. He noticed a "for sale" sign in the front yard. The house became the property of the bank. They had 30 days to move out. Half of the children's belongings had already been moved to his grandfather's house, slowly and quietly. They were told that these were just rooms for the weekend. He knew it would be hard, but it shouldn't have been. She was a disgusting traitor. But 11 years, 3 children, and several months of repentance dulled the pain a little. A little, but not enough. He took a shower, put on his best shirt and clean jeans. He looked in the mirror at his tanned face, trimmed his beard, and examined himself carefully. A new person was looking at him. Better in many ways, but sadder. This is not what he ever wanted for his life. He returned to the living room, opened a bottle of her favorite wine, and poured 2 glasses. He placed them on the coffee table, the neatly folded papers lying next to them. Jonathan again tampered with their location. She did it herself, not me. He just needed to remember her, her words that first night, her great lover, the one who understood her, the one who threatened him. He left their house to go to bed with this scoundrel, leaving him in unbearable pain. How? What kind of woman do you have to be to do something like that? How selfish and cruel do you have to be to do that? These thoughts were eating away at him from the inside, burning away all doubt. The door opened, and he stood up, tensely waiting. Jonathan, why is there a "for sale" sign on our house? Are we moving? There was anxiety in her voice. He came up, took her hand, and sat her down on the sofa. Darling, he began, his voice trembling treacherously. We need to talk. Her gaze fell on the table, on 2 glasses of wine. Then she noticed a stack of papers next to them. She looked more closely and finally realized what it was. Divorce application. Her eyes met his. She tried to find anger or sorrow in them, but saw only emptiness. Why? She asked, her voice shaking with fear. You've been cheating on me for a year, Susan, and she insisted that I accept it. But I can't live like this. I'm sorry. His words were calm, but each of them sounded like a sentence. She was breathing heavily, her hands were shaking. But you said you loved me, for forgiving me. I love you. I will always love you. You were my first true love, the best wife anyone could ask for 9 wonderful years. You are the mother of my beautiful children, a magnificent mother. And yes, I forgive you, for everything. But that's not enough. His voice was calm, but there was not a drop of warmth in it. Susan could hardly breathe, her heart pounding in her chest. Please don't do this, Jonathan. You don't want a divorce. It will be ugly. I will fight for us until the end. I swear I will. I don't want to lose my family. It's already been done. Documents have been submitted. The official bailiff will arrive shortly to serve you with the summons. We have 30 days to move out of our house. I'll take the children to Grandpa. It has plenty of space, and you know how much they love to hang out on the ranch. I will not deprive you of your children. We will arrange joint custody. You can see them whenever you want, he explained coldly, as if he were discussing a business deal. No, you won't take my children away from me. I have rights. Where will you live with them? How will you provide for them? He asked, his voice still calm. Here, I'll leave them here. I won't let our house be sold. Never. Her voice trembled with despair. This is no longer our home. This is the bank's house. It became their property, he answered without looking away. She looked at him in shock, trying to comprehend his words. Is the house mortgaged? How? I haven't paid my mortgage for 4 months. I don't make enough money anymore. But, but this is impossible. Why didn't I know anything about this? Because I didn't want you to know, he replied calmly. She realized that everything had been planned in advance. All these months, he led her down the wrong path, creating the illusion that everything was fine. How could you do this? How could you lie to me all these months? I was just remembering how you lied to me for 2 years. 1 year, when you went to bed with another man, you gave him your love, your attention. You made fun of our marriage. It was quite easy for me to answer you in kind. Her face filled with anger. I'm still their mother. The court will take them away from you and return them to me. You know that this will happen. I'll make your life miserable, Jonathan. You'll never see your children again if you do this. I swear. Where will you live? How will you take care of them? He asked quietly again. I'll go back to Rich. He will accept me. He loves me, she spoke with despair, although she knew it was a lie. Rich stopped answering her calls. But still, if she explains, you don't know? Jonathan's face showed genuine sadness. About what? She asked, holding her breath. Rich is dead. He took too many sleeping pills. Susan heard these words, and her world began to crumble. Deep down, she knew it was true. Without her, he fell into depression again. She remembered what he was like after she left him the first time. It was her fault. She tried to talk to him. I tried to see him. He himself stopped all this. She tried. She came to him. She didn't want it to end like this, in silence. Oh God, was he dead even then? How long? Why? Is it just because of her leaving? Or was he also subjected to the same pressure as her? Of course he couldn't stand it. Never. Wasn't that strong. Not without her by my side. Maybe it was a lie. Yes, that's right. Jonathan lied to hurt her like she did to him. This must be a lie. Rich can't be dead. Jonathan held her, waiting for the shaking to stop. Her gaze was glassy. Her body did not respond. Susan, he continued quietly. Susan. Finally, her breathing became calmer, and she snuggled closer to him. She began to cry, quietly at first, then more and more loudly. He pulled her closer and hugged her, comforting her. He's really dead, isn't he? She finally asked. 5 days ago. Sorry, I thought you knew, he replied. What should I do now? She asked plaintively. I assume your parents will accept you, at least temporarily. You have a job. You are still a beautiful woman. You will find someone who can accept what I couldn't. You can see your children whenever you want. I want them with me, she sobbed. I understand. But your parents don't have room for the 4 of you. I don't know how you can afford a house big enough for all of you. You don't want the 3 of them sharing a room, right? She shook her head. Grandpa has enough space. Miguel's niece will look after the house and children when I'm not around. Grandpa is angry with you, but he allowed you to come and see the children freely. You could help me. Alimony and child support money will allow me to do this. I earn less than $20,000 a year. I could pay maybe $500. This won't be enough. They will have a spacious home, 10,000 acres as their backyard. They will have everything they need. Grandpa has a lot of money and he loves it. What can you offer them? They are my children, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Yes, they are your children, and always will be. Why can't we go back to the way things were before, Jonathan? We love each other. The last few months have been so good. I made a mistake. Don't punish me forever. I didn't want this, she pleaded. Sorry, I can never trust you again. I will always wonder when you will fall into another man's bed again. You will return home to me, saturated with his scent. I can't live like this, and I don't want to. I'm moving on, and it's time for you too, he said firmly. I can't. I know I can't. I will die without my family. I won't have any reason to live, she cried. I hope not. It would be difficult for the children. Children? Do you care? Of course I do. Unfortunately, this is not enough. Your betrayal was too thorough, too full. You destroyed me. She shuddered when she heard the condemnation in his words. And now you're going to destroy me. Yes. She tried to fight it, but she didn't have the courage to do so. She was broken. Her parents sided with her, angry at Jonathan for denying her children. Over a long and painful dinner, he managed to make them understand that they could see the children whenever they wanted. Susan could have unlimited access to them. When she pulls herself together, and if she has room for them, they will agree on joint custody. Dinner was at his grandfather's house, and it was obvious that the children were happy there. 3 new puppies kept them entertained. Cindy rode every day and insisted on showing her grandparents her new horse. Joey was as proud as can be, dressed in what ranch hands wore, his boots dusty, his little Stetson dirty and curled at the sides. Nancy sat on her great-grandfather's lap, happy as a clam, while he read to her, giving them time to talk. She wrapped it around her little finger, and everyone knew it. The capricious old man has finally met his worthy opponent. They were at home, happy. She couldn't take that away from them. She signed the papers and continued her sad, miserable life. There was no alimony. She made as much money as he did, on paper. He did not ask for child support and offered joint custody, with him being the primary caregiver. They had virtually nothing to share except for a few pieces of furniture that Jonathan kept in the house in case she wanted to. He eventually gave her a check for half of their capital, $120. 11 years, $112 per year. Susan lost her job at Jenkins Hardware a week after the divorce became final. She was told that times were tough, and she was one of the new employees. She lay at home in her childhood bed, thinking about what had happened to her life. She had everything. Now she had nothing. Absolutely nothing. Jonathan looked at the beautiful red hair. Aideen wasn't the most talented. He had to give Gina credit for that, but she had to give her an A for effort. She was, of course, ready. Jesus, Jonathan, how did she even give this up? Asked the beauty. He pushed the thought out of his head. For the first 6 months, it would make him wilt and feel sorry for himself. Not anymore. They lay together. Do you need to leave soon? Jonathan asked. No, I can stay as long as you want, she said carefully. He knew that she was offering to stay overnight, but he was not ready for this. She was great, picture perfect, but she drank too much and didn't seem like the caring type. And this temper, not the best mother material. Not like Katie, sweet Katie, the most loving of them all at the moment. Susan met her grandmother. They sat in the living room and drank tea together. You look terrible, honey, Grandma Bridget said. I know, Susan answered quietly, unable to meet her grandmother's gaze. She remembered harsh words, condemning, insulting her. Her grandfather still hasn't acknowledged that she's alive. It's been over a year, Susan. You have to let it go. Move on with your life. You're still young, barely 30. 35, Grandma. The old woman laughed. Child, God, what I wouldn't give to be 35 again. Do you want to switch places? No, honey, not in a million years. I could never do this to your grandfather. He deserves better. Am I that terrible? No, honey, you did a terrible thing. You can overcome this. She took a sip of tea. Did you just come to visit, or do you need something? Susan looked at the older woman. 56 years of marriage. Perhaps she has the answers. I want him back, Grandma. I know he's lonely. He dates, but not for long. I see the way he looks at me at Sunday dinner. We were perfect together. I was an idiot. I threw it all away and wanted it back. I want my family back. I'm asking a lot, sweetie. You did him wrong. Very wrong. The man has pride, and you have done your best to destroy it. I know. I'll do whatever it takes. Do you think this is possible? Am I just dreaming? The older woman leaned back, looking at her daughter's baby. Broken. She was broken. There was not even a shadow of the happy girl she once was. However, 35 years old, pretty if she wanted to be, good figure. One day she made him love her. She paid the price and perhaps learned it's just possible. You know, it will be difficult. Make him fall in love with you again. Susan perked up at these words. Difficult, but not impossible. Grandma, whatever it takes. I swear, I won't do anything. Just tell me what I have to do. Anything. Please. Bridget looked at the robe, at the photo of herself and her 4 best friends. Cheerleaders many years ago. The most popular girls in school. The original Fab Five. Now all married, Emma celebrated her 50th birthday last month. Josephine with her second husband 10 years ago. May Darren rest in peace. Her Jimmy was a good man, but this Darren was special. Amazing. Thank God he's went to the grave, keeping her secret. She still felt shame for being lost weekend, shame and excitement. 55 years after graduating from high school, the 5 of them were still best friends. Everyone was still turning their heads. What they don't know about men won't fill their cup of tea. Let me make some calls. We have a lot of work ahead of us, you know. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.